Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. It looks like we have some people joining after our technical difficulty. So thanks so much. So my name is Kylie. I'm the U.S. Outreach Specialist here at Factorial. And I would love for anyone who's watching right now to say where you're coming in from. So Sanja is located in the UK, and but we do also have a good U.S. audience. So I would love to know where you're coming in from, where you're watching from as well. And also if you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, because this is our first really live event like this on both LinkedIn and YouTube. So let us know. Okay, so well, let's get started and get into it. So thanks again for joining. As this event is live, you'll be able to rewatch if you want to. We're going to be talking a lot about HR Business Partner, the skills that is needed, the key tools, and a bit about the HR career path and how the HR Business Partner falls into that. Okay, so those are going to be some of the key topics that we discuss. And I'm going to hand it over to Sanja in a second to introduce herself, talk about her experience. But first, I wanted to introduce a little bit about Factorial. So, excuse me. We are an all-in-one provider of software solutions for people teams. Our software features time and attendance tracking, applicant tracking and performance reviews, and much more. We streamline HR processes, giving HR professionals more time to dedicate to what really matters, their employees. And if you have any other questions about Factorial or what we do, feel free to let us know in the comments. And I just want to also mention that this is an interactive session. So if you want to ask any questions, we will get to those at the end of the live. So feel free to drop any questions that you have before, during, or after we speak with Sanja. Okay, so Sanja, let's hand it over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Fantastic. Well, just to say hi to everyone, thank you for dialing in today. I am positively nervous because I've never done anything like this before. So it's quite live at the moment, which means you can't edit. But just really as a bit of an intro, I have just over 10 years of HR experience. I worked for a number of different organizations, sectors and industries. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn as well. I'm happy to answer any questions after the call ends. Prior to me moving into HR, I worked as an employment law paralegal for a small law practice here in England. I have a law degree, and originally I wanted to become a lawyer. Clearly, I had a change of heart, which is something I will mention throughout the conversation with Kylie. But that's it in a nutshell about who I am. I am at the moment a strategic or senior HR business partner, and here to share some of my kind of insights about the role, insights about HR in general, and just give you some tips and tools if that's something you're after as well.
Great, Sanja, thanks so much. And if anyone has any questions also about Sanja, feel free to ask. And she is, I can't remember if you just mentioned this, Sanja, but she is on YouTube. So if you're tuning in via YouTube, feel free to check out her channel. She has some amazing content. So that's definitely a great idea. So let's get into it. And the first question I have for you, Sanja, is can you tell us what a typical day looks like for an HR business partner?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting question. And I think when I was trying to come up with some sort of answer, I think this will really depend on what kind of an HR model you work in. And if you are an HR business partner, you could be an aligned business partner, which means you are aligned to a department or business unit, business line, or a portfolio where they have a number of departments under one portfolio umbrella. So if you're an aligned HRBP, your day will be quite different to a non-aligned HR business partner. So I have worked in both roles, aligned and non-aligned. I personally prefer non-aligned role, and I'll explain a bit more. But if you are an aligned HR business partner, your days will vary from time to time. And I think you are going to be bound by certain HR activities that already may be set up by other teams. So there is very likely to be an HR calendar where you have to work on certain activities on a quarterly basis or annual basis. So examples could be reviewing succession plans, performance management reviews, calibration of performance, talent mapping. There could be a people plan you agreed with your business area that you are closely monitoring in terms of how it's being delivered. There may be a strategic workforce plan in place as well that you are reviewing every 6 to 12 months as well. So these kind of activities are already pre-scheduled activities that may come from centers of excellence or specialist teams. And just for those of you as well to understand, my experience is predominantly in large organizations where there are well-established shared services, centers of excellence, or specialist teams, as I would describe them, where you get lots of activity, lots of tools from them to make sure they're used by your business area, and you kind of bring them to life, if you like. If you are a non-aligned BP, that means you work on particular projects and assignments, and that's what you're really focusing on. And in my view, these are quite different because as an aligned HRBP, you are very likely to go to senior leadership team meetings. So you're part of their senior leadership team meetings, subject to the level you operate at as well. Again, it is dependent on your HR operating model you have in place. You may have random meetings with relevant SLT leads, department heads, executive leads. Again, it does depend on who you partner and at what level. You will also have meetings with your HR manager, your HR team as well. And I do find the role is often challenging because you have your HR sort of leadership hat on, and then you've got your business managers where clearly you are also kind of working with. And in a way, I have always found it when I was an aligned BP, I felt I had two managers, my kind of business unit managers, my department heads who would expect services from me, give me feedback. And then I would have my HR manager and wider team who would also expect things from me and potentially give me work and things like that as well. So I, at the moment, prefer non-aligned because that means I'm focusing on a particular project where I have to use particular tools, report on progress, make sure it gets delivered. So that's it in a nutshell. But just to sort of say, you may plan your day and a week or a month ahead, and you think it's perfect. I'm going to turn up. It's 9 or 10 o'clock. My working day starts. But in reality, especially when you're an aligned BP, things just start to crop up. There could be situations that, you get escalations about, then you feel you have to do something about it, especially when you work in large organizations where you depend on other teams doing things. And then before you know it, it's the end of the day, and then you really didn't do anything you were planning to do. So I'm just trying to be realistic here as to what may happen. So kind of be ready for unexpected and expected days.
Yeah, it seems like one of those roles that is really hard to put into a picture perfect day because there are so many things to focus on, and like you said, it can change so easily. And so continuing on, Sanja.
Yeah.
So in one of your recent YouTube videos, which speaking of your YouTube videos, we put together, kind of sidelining off of this, we put together an HR business partner kit for those who are viewing today. If anyone is interested in getting that, it's a really great tool for people who are interested in being an HR business partner, people who already are, who want to learn more or improve their skills in the role. So we have this great kit that is going to be sent out after the webinar. So if anyone who's joining hasn't signed up, and I'll put the sign up here in the chat, make sure you sign up so that you'll receive that that resource or that kit following the event. Okay. But anyway, back to my question. So in one of your recent videos, you talked about how there's a shift from focus or importance from job titles to skills. Companies are focused on what skills are needed for their successful business delivery. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why should we focus more on the skills rather than the job title?
Yeah, I think that's clearly a shift in terms of skills versus job titles. You can actually find quite lots of articles about this if you just type in Google skills, and skills are the new currency is a typical line that comes up, and there are really good blogs about claiming why we should focus on skills rather than job titles. And I think historically when departments were coming up with organizational design, they would really focus quite heavily on jobs that they needed to have in those kind of structures versus skills. These days and going forward, it's definitely all about skills. What do you know and how can you do it? And I think that's something that's quite interesting, because we then have to learn how to talk about our skills. And you may have heard about terminology called transferable skills, which means what can I do with my skills, and can I move them from one field to another field, especially when people are looking to change their careers or change their jobs. I think it's quite important to be able to articulate your transferable skills and really to be able to argue as to what you can do versus job titles restricting you. And another kind of view is job titles are unique to every organization. So organizations can change these job titles as they see fit. They can create job titles as they see fit. It's really what really matters to that organization. So why should we then be restricted to their job titles? And you may find yourself doing a role that exists in many organizations, but it's called differently. And this is what I mean by calling out your key skill set and skills on your CV or resume is quite important, and to be able to talk about it, why it really mattered in this role and how come it can matter in the other role or other organizations. And that's something clearly I used when I transitioned from kind of law into HR, which I can elaborate a bit more if people have questions. But that's what I mean by that. And I think even for us who work in HR as well, there could be different job titles. HR business partners as a kind of partnering function, you may be called people partner, people business partner, people experience partner, junior HRBP, senior HRBP. Even HR departments could have different names. For us in the UK, I've seen names people and organization development. It could just be people department. So that's what I mean. The job titles and department names are unique to every organization, whereas what we get from each role is actually skills. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm coming from with that one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because, depending on the size of the company or even where it's located, in so many different factors, it can mean something different or be called something different. So I think that's such a valuable message to send, focusing on those skills. So let's see. So moving on to the nitty gritty. So as any professional climbs up the ladder and attains more experience, more qualifications can be required. So Sanja, you're located in England, which, with some of our audience being from the US, qualifications are required or at least highly recommendable in the UK. And maybe if you can tell us anything you know about the US, how those differ, maybe you could share that with us.
Indeed. So I think this is actually an interesting one. And even today I did speak to someone about, HR qualifications, or how can a person, start working in HR. And it's not really universal. Like, if you want to be a lawyer, you need to have a law degree. If you want to be a doctor, you need to have a medical degree. I think HR is very versatile as to how people get into HR. So in my view and my experience, some may disagree, by the way, with this one. And again, organizations will be quite particular as to what they want from their candidates and their employees. But HR qualifications as such are not really compulsory. So they are desirable to have, and it's good to have them in my view, because you get to learn a bit about HR thinkers or models, methodologies, frameworks, whatever that may be. You'll be able to understand the language a bit better, and you'll be able to do something with that knowledge. So they are not essential as in you must have them, but I think that it's good to have them if you have the money and time to invest in relevant HR qualifications. So just to break it down for the audience, I'll mention UK sort of side, and then I'll mention the USA side, which I think is quite relevant to whatever you've dialed in as well. Mm-hmm. So for us in the UK, we have an institute called CIPD, which stands for Chartered Institute for Personal Development, or CIPD, which is the only institute in the UK that really you as an HR professional can be a member of. You can complete relevant courses, you can get relevant accreditation. They give you certain acronyms that you can use after your name, which basically shows to your employers you are CIPD qualified. And it's good to have that on your CV. It is quite expensive. So I think what I often suggest to people is to express a desire to get CIPD qualified, but to find a way for their employers to fund it because it's quite expensive. Another way, someone who lives in the UK, you can study HR. So you can have a degree in HR. Sometimes relatable degree would be a degree in psychology because there's lots of kind of human side of things, understanding your organization and behavior. So I've seen people with psychology degrees kind of working in HR. You can study a business degree, and as part of your business degree, you can select a couple of modules that are HR related modules, and even that you can call out, whether on your CV or in your job applications as well. You don't have to study, but let's say you want to work in HR, and which I don't think this actually exists in the USA. If it does, please correct me. But we have in the UK apprenticeship schemes where you can sign up to be an apprentice, and many organizations run these apprenticeship schemes in various fields and industries. So it could be engineering, it could be even legal, actually, and definitely there is HR, which means you work and then you study at the same time. The organization pays for that. And at the end of it, which takes slightly longer, you will get a qualification that's equivalent to a degree. And that's a really good way to get qualified in HR. Or another one, which I also don't think you have in the USA, but someone please correct me, is we have in the UK graduate schemes that predominantly large organizations offer to graduates that you can sign up for. And sometimes organizations have a finance graduate scheme or HR graduate scheme, engineering graduate scheme that you can sign up for. And sometimes they may say any degree is eligible, rather than kind of specify has to be HR related degree. So, or as it happens, which I think happens still today, is you somehow end up in HR by accident. You didn't mean to end up in HR, but you just ended up in HR. And you could have 20 years of experience in HR with no qualification in a quite senior role. It does happen. So this is then when you as an HR professional could then use your experience and knowledge to get assessed by CIPD, let's say, to give you some sort of accreditation and say, actually, we are going to take into account your experience and what you've done to give you certain accreditation. And that, of course, is quite pricey as well to do that. Now, on another hand, the USA, based on my experience, and my interactions and my research, so it's very similar. So it's not compulsory, but when I was kind of preparing for this input, and I do have a small audience who watches my YouTube channel and kind of contacts me, certain job adverts, again, would specify this is desirable or this is essential. So again, as such, you may have senior HRBP role advert or an HRBP advert, and they will not specify any course or any degree or any qualification. Some may say a degree is required, or they may say degree in HR is desirable. But I have found two actually institutes as well that seem to be similar or equivalent to the CIPD in the UK. And one of those is HRCI, which stands for Human Resource Certification Institute. And the second one is SHRM, which stands for the Society for Human Resource Management. So I think, Kylie, we can definitely send links as well for those of you to explore further. And from what I could see on the website, so if I lived in the USA and I was interested in HR, just to kind of get certain certifications or be up to date with terminology, get something kind of behind my name, these are the two places I would go to learn a little bit about it. And I think they offer you an opportunity to do a course and get relevant certifications in place, or they may even assess your experience today to be able to really understand a level you operate at. But I'll pause for now because it's quite a lot I shared. But I would be quite interested to see, what people have to say. And I think it's quite interesting when organizations decide to advertise jobs, what they really specify. And this is something where I often challenge certainly departments I've supported so far to be really, really clear on what is essential and what is desirable, as opposed to just put everything on there. And then you could, by default, exclude quite a lot of people.
Definitely. Yeah, well, and no, that was a lot of great information. And I think, I know that you have some links to share, so maybe I can incorporate that into our, we could send it in the chat here at the end of the live as well. And Well, it looks like we have a lot of good questions, so I want to
Yeah.
wait a little bit to the end, or unless Sanja, you would like to answer some questions to take a break from the Q&A and answer some of the questions we have here in the chat. What do you prefer?
I don't mind. We can whiz through as we kind of planned. And then definitely I tend to dial into calls like this as well. And I'm sure the chat will remain live. I really would like to get back to people. If I can't directly on my own, I would like to give them all the answers they've asked. So I'm happy to interact with you kind of separately as well. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn and I will
Yeah.
answer your questions as well separately, because sometimes, people dial in and they may not kind of get an opportunity to hear an answer to their question as well. So let's just whiz through the questions, and then I will stay for as long as I need to answer all the questions.
Great. So great.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the next question that I had for you, Sanja. What are some of the technical skills and behavioral competencies that we would see in an HR business partner?
Yeah. So we've split this one into kind of technical skills and behavioral skills. So I think when Carly and I were preparing for this, we definitely didn't want to refer to hard skills and soft skills. I think we, are trying to change the language and how people may define those. But I think language going forward for me personally is technical skills and behaviors required to operate in your role and be competent. So technical skills for an HRBP would be knowing how to create people plans, knowing how to develop frameworks, knowing how to write business cases or reports, knowing how to lead on change management projects. They could be transformation or restructures, cultural change projects where, let's say, you're changing quite a lot from a technology point of view. You knowing how to do org design or have a conversation about a structure and design it as to how it needs to be. Your ability to work with data, analyze data. Let's say there could be, which is, I suspect, a quite hot topic at the moment for most HRBPs, is your department could be asking you to do a skills and capability review. So in which case you need to be able to do that. Managing projects definitely as well. So, project management skills are quite desirable. Plus, in addition to that, could be technical knowledge, could be employment law, using certain systems, creating policies and procedures as well. So these are all technical and many others, by the way. I'm sure I missed loads. But for those of you, when you go for job interviews or when someone asks you to describe your technical skills, this is what I would say for me, definitely. And in terms of behaviors, it's all about how you would then do that. So technical is all about what we know, which is great. And then behaviors are all about how you do that. So it's all about, in my view, for an HRBP, curiosity, asking lots of questions, establishing problem statements, a true collaborator, especially if you work in large organizations. This is not to be underestimated. I think every time you come up with something, you always have to ask yourself, who else needs to know about this? Especially in large organizations, because you can't operate in isolation. You need to be quite transparent. So again, you really cannot hide what's going on in your business area. And you need to be, pulling on from other team members or other HRBPs just to make sure you're not doing something inconsistent in your own business area. So it's always good to triple check what else exists already in the organization, just to sort of learn from those examples. In my view, also customer-centric, commercial. So when we partner our business area, it's quite important to understand, what is their product, what is their service, what are their anxieties, what are their pressure points, and do I, as a BP, really understand that, and can I really address some of that as well by being proactive and working with them, solving their problems, identifying gaps. And the one I really talk a lot about is critical thinking. So that's another skill I'm trying to continue, continuously trying to improve, an ability to operate in ambiguous environment. And I think ambiguity is an interesting one. It may come up often as well, by the way, in job interviews, where there could be a question around ambiguity and can you operate in ambiguous environments. And also, in my view, kind of you have to be creative, because often you'll have to create ad hoc plans or action plans, something that maybe wasn't done before, where you do have an opportunity to test some of these concepts. And then ability to influence and change people's mindsets and perspectives, especially sometimes for us HR can still be viewed negatively by certain leaders and managers, because long time ago, HR was set up really as a compliance function, whereas the HR in 2022 and beyond is completely different. And this is where we still often have to work hard to really demonstrate as to value we add and how we actually help them deliver their business. After all, we are called business partners, so it's in the job title anyway.
Right. Well, let's see. And I like that some people were chiming in the chat about the hard skills versus soft skills. I
Yeah.
think it is, like you said, Sanja, something that, there are much better ways to say something that are even more clear than those. So completely agree. So Sanja, the HR career path usually looks well, let me make sure I didn't, oh yes. So moving on, what tools do you use on a daily or weekly basis as an HR business partner?
Yeah.
If you want to tell us a little bit about that.
So tools are, quite interesting. So for me, in terms of tools, and I have published some tools as well on my own website, but in terms of tools, if you work for a large organization, your specialist teams or centers of excellence would usually create certain tools for you to use as a BP. So that means you have to use those tools that they, have developed for you. So, that could be a succession planning template, or talent mapping template, and other templates as well, where as part of those annual activities, really, you have to use to ensure there is consistency across the business. If you work in a smaller organization and you may find yourself, actually, there isn't a lot in place, I have to now create things on my own. Again, think about creating some of these tools. But for me personally, when I was an aligned HRBP, I would use people plan template. I would use succession planning template or talent mapping template. Framework template as to when I need to look at ad hoc initiatives and how to develop that as well. I would also use relevant dashboards. So dashboards are quite interesting, where you kind of get to see lots of people data, on one page, the size of your department. You can look at how many people, work in particular teams, their grades and things like that. And I would often use HR dashboard for my senior leadership team inputs. What can I do to spot any gaps? What's the attendance like, sickness like, turnover, vacancies and things like that. So this is what I mean by tools, and these are the tools that usually exist in organizations. And you just kind of you have to get upskilled to be able to use those. Another one as well that could really be quite interesting, employee engagement tools as well. So organizations often run employee engagement surveys. So after every survey, you as an aligned HRBP may have to kind of have workshops and conversations with your senior leadership team to really understand and pull actions as to what they need to do. So I would use a particular template for that. So those are the kind of typical tools that I would work with, and relevant HR software that your particular organization uses. So again, Factorial is definitely, offering those kind of solutions as well, but I've used different HR softwares as well. As a non-aligned HRBP, you are quite project focused, where you have to kind of use your consultancy skills a lot more. So I would use relevant project management software tools. I would get relevant training on that. There is quite a lot more reporting when you're managing projects, delivery. So there is certainly certain terminology that's used, applying some of those agile principles. And agile is quite an interesting term as well that often crops up. But I would work as part of kind of agile methodology in terms of how projects get delivered. And it's quite fast paced as well in terms of that. Business cases as well. So I would often have to draft business cases and pull together reports. So I would use a particular template for that to be able to do that in terms of kind of technical tools.
Great. Thanks, Sanja. So I also wanted to ask you, Sanja, the HR career path usually looks something like HR generalist to HR specialist to
Yeah,
HR business partner, or maybe a different role as well. Of course, that can vary depending on the HR operating models in place. What
yeah.
route, and also what route they want to take within the HR path and other factors. So, what leads someone to become an HR business partner? So, I'll ask that question and then get to my next one first. So,
Yeah.
uh, what leads someone to become or to get into that role?
Mm. So in my experience, again, over the last 10 years, I have worked with many people who wanted to become an HR business partner. And I think the reason the role itself is quite popular is because you are usually aligned to a business, you're quite close to business leaders, you can make things happen, you can create, you can be quite influential, you are quite knowledgeable, you know what's going on. And that's quite appealing to some people. And I think when you're an aligned BP, you get to create, you get to deliver, and you get to see results of that delivery. And that's that's very satisfying and rewarding as an HRBP. It gives you visibility. You can simply enable them to do what they need to do. And if you do a good job, you'll get fantastic feedback, and people will definitely want to work with you. That's what it is in my experience as to why HRBP roles tend to be quite popular. And again, I think, for someone who's quite proactive. So again, you may find yourself feeling like you're in the middle of a structure, which again may not be appealing to many people. But if you find yourself, you're quite proactive, you want to get stuck in, you like solving problems, you like helping people, you like working with business leaders, then this is definitely the role for you.
Great, thanks. And my second part of that question was, what makes the role stand out compared to other, well, you kind of answered this a little bit, but
Yeah.
stand out compared to other HR paths people could take? Is there anything else you want to add to that? But you kind of answered it already.
Yeah, but just briefly again, and I think what most people think of HR, well, I have to become an HR advisor, then I have to become an HR manager, then I have to become HRBP, then eventually maybe head of HR, and then, eventually HR director. And I think HR there's much more to HR. Is, clearly what I champion is other roles and other ways to get into HR, not just this kind of, it's not really linear as such, and you can do zigzags, under HR umbrella if you like. So, under HR umbrella, you may have many teams and many specialist teams that you may like to be part of and work in. And then in time you can change these teams from time to time. So you have recruitment, workforce planning and reporting, you have HR analytics, shared services, HR operations, employee relations, well-being, compensation, reward and benefits, L&D, learning and development, D&I, diversity and inclusion, and of course you would have kind of business partnering and many other teams, rather than just this kind of one way. And the bigger the organization, in my view, the better, because you have opportunities to change roles quite easily. And I have seen many people get shortlisted and successful for internal opportunities that I know as an external candidate they would not be shortlisted for. But most organizations would have some sort of internal talent frameworks where really they want to invest in their own people and grow their own first, and they would potentially advertise first internally before they go externally. So there are many kind of roles you can explore to be described as an HR professional, rather than just kind of one way. And that's something I'll continuously promote, just to kind of paint a picture as to how big it is. But it could be all kind of labeled kind of HR department, if you like.
Great, thanks. And so I asked you a little bit about HR generalist to HR specialist, but what are some of the roles that people might start to seek out after gaining a lot of experience as an HR business partner? What might be the next steps if they feel like they want to explore a different part of HR?
I mean, clearly that's what happened to me in a way, where, I was an aligned HRBP and I thought, this is it, I'm now stuck with this. How do I get out of it? And I was really, looking at what else could I do? And clearly, one way was to kind of be a non-aligned HRBP and find an organization where I can be a non-aligned HRBP. And at some point I was even looking at, becoming a consultant, just working kind of for a consultancy, because that's something I like to do. So I was already looking at kind of ways as to what else I could do. But if, let's say, I expressed an interest in workforce planning or strategic workforce planning, and I wanted to specialize a bit more in that field, and that's something I definitely could have explored in some of my organizations to date I worked for. I just never did, because I personally didn't want to specialize early, and I still view myself as a generalist, which means I know lots of things. But if I need a deep dive on a particular subject, I may need to kind of contact relevant specialist person to spend a bit more time and then design a plan as to how we're going to tackle it. So at this stage in my career, I'm not ready to specialize in anything just as yet. But what I am passionate about and what I think I'll specialize in the future will be organizational design and strategic workforce planning, which is all about working with relevant methodologies and just making sure organizations are ready for the future, looking at, 3 to 5 years ahead, is something I think I may specialize in the future.
Awesome. Well, that brings me back. So, to anyone who has just joined us or wasn't here earlier, Sanja just mentioned strategic workforce planning, which is something that is included in our HR business partner kit that we have sending out to anyone who has signed up. So, I'll send the link in the chat now, just in case anyone who hasn't signed up wants to receive that. We'll be sending that out after the event. So it's going to be a great source. It has a lot of Sanja's videos, resources from her website as well. So it'll be a full overview of what an HR business partner needs to look out for. So moving on, this is a little bit more about your experience and your path, Sanja. So not everyone grows in HR in the same way, like we've said. And in your case, you initially worked in law and jumped over to HR, which honestly probably helped you in the long run with your knowledge in employment law, right? So and I think some people have already said this in the chat, for those who may be looking into HR as a career option, or even those who have recently switched careers to HR, what is the best advice you can give them as they're starting that journey or thinking about it?
Yeah, so I think I would really focus on skills, understanding my skills, understanding what skills I, want to learn, and just to be able to talk about them, describe them, and how they add value. That's something I would do, for someone who's looking to work in HR. I would also look at what sort of projects I can, I can get involved in, even if you don't work in a department called human resources or HR. Relatable projects that really are relevant, solve problems, add value. Those are the kind of things that really matter. I would also focus on learning from others, finding mentors, not just one mentor, like as many as you can. Just people who have done things or do things the way really you are admiring a little bit. And you like the way that they behave, or the way that they present, or the way they draft. I'm someone, when I go back to when I transitioned from law into HR, I learn a lot through observing, and I like to spend good quality time observing as to how teams behave and how things get done. And I at some point just send requests to people to spend a bit more time with them or shadow them. I'm quite curious, and that's what really worked well for me. I'm more on the active side as well, where I proactively seek to learn from other people as well. And I know that may not be easy for many people, but when I find myself in an environment where there is quite a lot going on, especially in large organizations, I would just try and find actually who is really good at their job, that I think they're doing a really good job, and I just want to learn from them. And then clearly I'm sharing some of that already today. But that's something I would do if I was kind of in your shoes. Clearly I don't know audiences' roles and what they do as well, but that's something I would do as well. And just like some of those kind of typical behaviors, being helpful, just being up to date as to what goes on in your business area, inquisitive, curious, bring insights and knowledge. You would be surprised, how many things are happening in the business and people just don't know, and you kind of take it for granted as well. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I don't want to kind of dwell too much on it, but that's something I would encourage you in terms of your kind of behaviors, what to do if you're looking to work in HR or looking to kind of continue with your career in HR.
Great, Sanja, thank you. And moving on, so the beginning of the HR business partner role is crucial for many reasons. That's why a lot of HR business partners plan interviews to ask candidates, or they ask candidates to prepare a 90-day plan. What do individuals need to know about this, and where should they start? And what do they need to include, no matter what?
Yeah, so 90-day plan, or 100-day plan, as some may call it as well, is quite interesting. It may happen in job interviews that they ask you to put together one, in which case you would be assessed against it. So there would be an interview, and then there would be a bit of a presentation on your 90-day plan. And what really organizations are looking to do with that one is assess your approach to your role and how you would contract with a particular organization. Now, I think as part of the kit that Kylie mentioned, you can download a free 90-day plan. And how I approach it, and as part of my interviews and assessments to date, this is what I would focus on. So first 30 days, it's all about establishing your presence. And what I mean by that, clearly you'll have to do your IT training and relevant, modules that you just simply have to complete to be up to date with policies and procedures. Then I would spend good quality time on understanding who are the key stakeholders or key people I have to work with. And that is very important. Who do I need to work with more closely? Who do I need to keep an eye on? Or who is simply around that I need to be aware of, but I don't have to work with them as closely. And that's quite important, again, especially when you're in a line BP. Again, as a reminder, anything you do, especially in large organizations, but any size organization, the question should always be, who else needs to know about this that I'm working on? So key stakeholder map and mapping relevant people against that map, it's quite important. And then also, if you're in a line BP, spending good quality time on understanding data, people side, anything really that can give you any insights as to what's going on in that particular area, and discuss objectives with your manager and your business area. And then your 30 to 60 days, I call it reviewing my landscape. So, start influencing, start partnering, start coaching, start giving ideas, because we are expected to go from a learner mode. So we are in the learner mode. We learn by asking questions. But at some point, I do find they would quickly expect you to be in the leader mode, which means you have to start giving views, opinions, and you may be put on the spot from time to time. So it's quite important to know things and what goes on in the business to be able to form an opinion and a view that you can then articulate when asked or put on the spot. I also focus quite a lot on, running, improving, transforming, to be able to structure those conversations as to what we are running with from a people side, what we are improving, what we are transforming, to help me improve, to help me put together a people plan or people delivery plan for them, whatever that is, together with relevant business area. And I definitely focus on here and now versus what's strategic as well, which can be challenging, but it is subject to the role you operate at. And then 60 to 90 days would be, I call it, deal with today, build for tomorrow. That's at least how I call it. And I think this is where, in consultation with your relevant business area, your HR manager, to create a strategic people plan that really will give you lots of activities, lots of actions for yourself, but also the relevant senior leadership team as well. Again, it's one team, we're working together, and they also need to have some actions as well to contribute to it as well. But that's what that is in a nutshell. And I think 90-day plans really are a good agenda item when you start in your early, especially in your early kind of days of starting in a new job. I've used them almost as an agenda with my new manager that, we structured our conversation around.
Really good information on that. I think it's, and like you said, some call it 90 days, some call it 100 day, but
yeah,
whatever it might be called, it's the same idea. Interesting. And so we're running a little bit short on time. So our next question was more about that 90-day plan. So because Sanja gave us so much good information, I'm going to continue with our another question, okay, just so that we don't run
Yeah.
out of time. So when an HR business partners, actually, we kind of touched on this as well, but I'm going to say it to you just in case you have some more insight. When an HR business partner is ready for the next step in their career, what would that be and how can it be achieved? Are we looking at more certifications, skills, or anything else? So we touched on this a little bit, but if there
Yeah.
is anything you want to add, Sanja.
Yeah, I think I would just really briefly, I would say when you feel you're super competent in your role, it feels comfortable, feels easy, you're getting great feedback from customers, that's potentially a sign you could be ready for another challenge. But it needs to feel anywhere between 80 to 100% competent in your role. If you don't feel but competent in your role, but you really would like to do something different, I would be encouraging you to explore another role at the same level where you do need to become competent at that level before you kind of look at a progression. So I think what I often talk about and promote is a lateral development, which means you operate at the same level but you're doing different roles, or it could be a promotion where you kind of upward journey, if you like. So, career development goes kind of both ways in my view. And in fact, actually on my YouTube channel, you can find a video I did with my friend Chris Blackwell, who is a former chief executive, and he really talks a lot about this, and he shares his 7 tips as to how he became a chief executive from kind of frontline role to kind of that level, and what really worked for him as well. And I think this is where I got from him as well. Every time he felt he was so comfortable and competent in his role, that's when he was seeking for more work to do, because he knew the quality of next work would be really good, as opposed to, I'm not great at my job, I want to do something else, and therefore you may not be great at either of the jobs. That's where he was coming from as well. And I think another video as well that's quite good that I did with him was tips for senior promotion, which clearly some of you may be interested in your career, and how to approach senior interviews. And I think he's pitching for senior interviews being almost like an election as well, which is quite an interesting video as well to kind of watch.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you made, because I think many people want to get to the next step in their careers and maybe are feeling a little bit antsy to move forward, but really having that skill set and being ready for that next position is crucial.
It is
Great.
indeed.
And then well, before we head over to the Q&A session
Yeah.
and answer some of the questions we have, is there any advice or recommendations that you would like to share to those who are watching? Maybe ways to grow their skill sets, courses they may benefit from, or ways to continue progressing?
Yeah, I mean, clearly my kind of encouragement to anyone really, not just kind of HR professionals, is to invest in understanding data, improving your data skills, becoming data driven. There's actually a fantastic website called the Data Literacy Project, and you can do like a self-assessment as to how you work with data and what kind of a data person you are, and you can do lots of free courses and paid courses on there as well. Clearly explore CIPD and some of the USA institutes I mentioned as well, because you can get those formal kind of qualifications that way. I myself as well am developing a very informal HRBP course, which is really quite technical around contracting piece, organizational design, business plans as well, because I like technical side of my role as well, which I think really kind of matters to people. But that's what it is in a nutshell, in terms of what I would encourage people at this stage to work on when it comes to 22 and beyond.
Great. All right, so let's see some of the questions that we have. I think there are some good ones. So I'll have to be going through the chat here, so bear with me.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that we have people from all over that joined us today: US, Spain, the UK, and so on. Even Mexico, it says here. So that's great. So let me see. Someone says, what type of skills we need to have in HR? Maybe to answer this question, like the skills that maybe you can see in any position throughout HR that carry on throughout the HR career path.
And I think skills are in my view, ability to learn and willingness to learn, and being curious and asking questions, transparent, collaborative. These are key skills in my view. So even if I don't know a lot as to how to do my job, it's the way you behave around your job really that will set you for success in my view, and that's going to be really appreciated by many people you work with. It's just your ability to learn and want to learn. Everything else really comes easily in my view. And every day I end up dealing with a new situation, or every week. And even though I have some experience, I still call my colleagues and say, actually, I'm dealing with this, what do you think? Have you done this before? Every week it happens. I have to have a conversation about something where I want someone else's views and perspectives. So continue to do something like that, for as long as you need to. But in my view, it's potentially forever.
Yeah. And just being able to have the confidence to ask for advice, because maybe there are some people who think that they should know everything, but that's not realistic. Being able to be open and ask for advice is key. And just to say, that question was from Sheikh Samir. So if he's still watching, hopefully he was able to get some great info from that question. The next one is from Ashley. She says, Ashley from the US here. I transitioned from education to HR about 5 years ago, and it was, oh, well, it's not exactly a question, actually. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Anyway, she transitioned, and it was super seamless due to numerous transferable skills. Well,
yes,
if there's
indeed.
anything you
Great.
want to expand on that, Sanja, about those transferable skills, maybe you can tell us one skill that you really saw that transferred from law to HR when you made that transition.
So again, one skill. So again, a technical skill at the time for me was employment law, and that's how I managed to get shortlisted and interviewed for certain roles. But again, from a behavioral point of view, definitely just kind of ability to learn and willingness to learn and just really see what's out there. The world is really big and opportunities are all around us. And again, sometimes there has to be an element of being at the right place at the right time for all these opportunities to happen, and really spotting them and grabbing them as well is something I would say. But clearly, great experience. And, I'm glad to see that, some people actually can articulate their transferable skills in terms of that, but it doesn't come easily. And I think it's something that we need to start working on and promoting a bit more.
Right. Great. And let's see. The next question, it's a real question, is from Diane. And Diane says she wants to transition to HR, but is not sure if it's better to go straight into a bachelor in HR or a business degree with HR concentration. Which do you think would be better?
Yeah, I don't know do we know where she's based in terms of country? But
I'm not sure.
Irrelevant to that, I think someone else actually did ask me this question, and I think with an HR degree, you could be restricting yourself a little bit. And if you're in the UK or USA or wherever you are, if you're exploring a business type degree, double check if modules offered give you an opportunity to select a couple of HR modules. And I know that works really well for people as well. So that's something, if I was doing it again or study or wanted to study again, I would actually personally opt for a business degree, because I then know I can select a couple of HR modules, and that really then gives me a well-rounded degree that I can just kind of use and transfer from A to B profession, as opposed to HR degree. One may think actually it's kind of restricting you a little bit in that regard.
Yeah.
That's my view. Yeah, this is my personal views, by the way. So.
And Diane answered
this
from Canada. Well, great.
Fantastic.
So hopefully, Diane, that answers your question. Yeah, I think that's a great perspective to have, because, maybe if you want to, like you did, Sanja, change your career path or do something different, or it's great to not be constricted.
Yeah, I would like to add as well, sorry, Kylie, just to say to people, sometimes people may wish to do like a master's in HR as well. And that's another way to have a regular degree in anything else, and then you can kind of do masters. Again, it's optional. It's only there available for you as a reminder. I know there are ways as to how people can do that. But masters as well in HR is another option as well, in my view.
Right. Great. And let's see. Ashley says, any advice for transitioning from a generalist to a HR business partner?
Well, generalist isn't HRBPs are generalists already. So if you are restricted a little bit because of your job title may be called HR generalist and you now want to become an HR business partner, in my view, you're already a business partner. And HRBPs are generalists. We are versatile in what we know and how we do our job. So in my view, you would be a perfect candidate for a BP role. And again, you could be already operating at that BP level, but you need to always double check operating model in place, structures that already exist. And I always encourage people to ask so many questions when they are applying for jobs as to what sort of models they have in place for you to know which level you operate at. Even as an HRBP, I think you sometimes you can have a job title as an HRBP, but you're not partnering senior leadership team. Sometimes you maybe an HRBP to executive lead. And I think, Kylie, when you and I talked about this as well, definitely for us in the UK, you can be an HRBP and your salary is like £30,000 a year, or you could be an HRBP and your salary is six-figure salary. And again, this is what I mean by job titles. What really matters is the skills and level you operate at.
Yeah, definitely. And that's such a good point because, like you said, depending on the role, the skills that you have, it completely depends and completely varies. And the next question we have is from Valerie. What kind of result is an HR business partner seeking? I think this
results,
this was a specific question to a question that I asked you, and now I can't remember exactly what the question was, but I think it was that you're seeking results in your role for the organization that you're working for. So maybe you have a better
exactly. For me, really, it's all about you spending time with the business, creating a plan, and delivering that plan. Whether you're delivering a plan directly yourself or whether you're asking other teams to do it for you, what really matters to any business area is delivery of something you scoped with them to do. And if there is no tangible evidence and outcomes and results that something is better as a result of that plan, that means you need to work really hard to provide evidence as to why something's working. So if a business is struggling with not understanding skills and capabilities, well, where's the plan that really explains and talks about action plan? And if there is a gap in your skills assessment, what have we put in place to make sure that our workforce is skilled enough to do whatever they need to do? That's just like a basic typical example, but it could be anything really. For me, it's all about delivery, doing something that you said you would do that really matters to the business.
Great, thanks. So it looks like that's all the questions we have. Saeed asked which one is better, HR generalist or HR business partner, but we just covered that. So
yeah, we did.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, Sanja, for being here with us today. I wanted to mention if anyone has any other specific questions or wants to hear a little bit more about what Sanja had to say, feel free to reach out to her on LinkedIn. After this event, I'll be sending out an email, so you'll have her LinkedIn information there, so you can easily contact her. It does look like we have one more question, if Sanja, if it's okay. All right.
That's
so
fine.
It's a retail store manager, and I just started my college career to get my business degree with a concentration in HR management. What may be the easiest way to transition to an HR generalist role? And that's from Christopher.
So he's a retail store manager already. I would encourage you, Christopher, to look at opportunities where you currently work. You would be surprised how much work there is in retail for HR people, and you as a store manager are already potentially dealing with some people challenges and issues, and clearly you're doing some college degree and looking to get a business degree with concentration in HR management. So the easiest way, if I was in your shoes, I would explore what opportunities you have in your current organization before you start looking outside. And in my view, if you don't ask, you don't get. You would be surprised how many opportunities could be created, or, organizations really want to keep they're key people and talent and people who just want to continue, to work for them. So I would definitely explore that. That would be my strategy if I was doing this again. There's actually a really good website on LinkedIn that really helps you identify your transferable skill set. And there's actually a really good example where someone shared on LinkedIn where they went from a reception at a hotel to kind of become an HR generalist. And the skills that they used were customer services, solving problems. Because us as BPs really, and I think this really goes for any role, regardless of the field and industries, is really all about customer services, which is what your world is all about as a retail manager. And that's something I would really call out on my CV as your ability to do, with a view clearly, you are getting knowledge and courses that way as well, which I think really paired up would look really good to get shortlisted. So explore internally first where you are before you start looking externally. But we will share this link as well, which I think is really good tool that LinkedIn developed, where you can type in your job title and it gives you the skills you have that could be transferred to your chosen field as well. I don't know if I send it now whether Christopher can get it, but feel free to send me a message, Christopher, and then I'll send you a link as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a great tool to kind of visualize that and see those transferable skills, and I love that what you said about if you don't ask or if you don't say anything, you'll never know. And that kind of
Exactly.
reminds me of what you said earlier about reaching out to people, starting a conversation, not being afraid to build those professional connections. You never know what can happen. So
indeed, I mean, my final kind of words are just kind of, you are in the driving seat and you are doing this for yourself, and we're all kind of little walk-in businesses and startups investing in ourselves. So I know it doesn't come easily to many people, but as I mentioned, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't contact people, you never know what kind of doors it opens for you. And behaving in that way, quite curious way, not knowing things, it's absolutely fine. In fact, no one knows everything, and we learn something new every day. Is just something I would like to kind of encourage you to do that. But you're in the driving seat, and there is an element of being at the right place, the right opportunity, and it takes time. But it is possible if your strategy and know what you want really is quite clear to you. If you're not sure, then it may take some time. But if you're quite sure what you want, then it may take 6 months, 12 months, 15 months. But if you know what you want, I think that's what worked for me quite well, because I was targeting my search really well. And I was really open about what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do, which again, kind of being kind of brave to kind of speak up and courageous about what you really want out of your career is quite important. And then people will know about it.
Right, definitely. And we'll answer just this one last question from Ariel. So she says, I'm an HR coordinator. I handle data analytics, KPI reporting, benefits, payroll, recruiting, and onboarding. I have barely 2 years experience and no degree. How do I get someone to believe I am capable of being a HR business partner with such little experience?
Yeah, I think you have fantastic experience already. It really helps you understand how HR kind of function works. And this is what really matters to all organizations, analytics, reporting, benefits, payroll, how can an organization really function, and knowing that, how to do that, will put you really ahead of the game when it comes to really understanding HR operating models. In terms of experience, that you are now clearly looking for next steps. You're thinking, actually, maybe I've done this for a while now. It's quite operational, maybe tactical. I want to do something else. I feel quite competent. How do I get someone to believe? And again, I think, I don't know, your situation and how you speak to your line manager, but this is something I would say, if you have an opportunity and work with a manager that's quite understanding and wants to listen, that I would mention actually as part of my next journey, and this is what I'm looking to do. Is there going to be anything available internally? And see what they have to say. Sometimes people work with unsupportive managers, unfortunately, in which case you may not feel comfortable to speak to them about it. But there are other people I hope you can speak about that as well before you start looking at external roles. And I would really focus on potentially working, shared services, operational world. So to find HRBP roles that partner those kind of functions as well would work really well, because you can be an HRBP for your HR department. So you as a, so even HR department needs a business partner. So knowing skills and challenges in those kind of departments is quite important. Actually, throughout my career, I have partnered quite a lot of support functions departments, and I have partnered shared services and HR departments as well as a result of it. So I think try and call out what you know as a field, industry, sector, if you like, that already exists as a useful knowledge to say, actually, I know a lot about this and I would like to partner this. And I think you would be a fantastic BP for support functions to help you kind of get into that space.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much, Sanja, for all your insight. It was so great to, hear what you have to say and also tie that in with your personal experience, because I think there are a lot of people who are growing in HR or thinking of transitioning to HR, and you just covered everything. So everyone, just one last time, if you want to receive that HR business partner kit following, be sure to sign up, and we'll also be sending an email. If you sign up there, we'll be sending an email to everyone with the link to the recording if you missed the first part when we were having those technical difficulties. And I hope everyone who wanted to watch was able to watch. And well, thank you so much for being here today, Sanja, and sharing so much about your experience and the role.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, Sanja. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.